In the vast uncharted blue, sharks move like shadows, silent, powerful, and perfectly designed by nature's hand. They are neither monsters nor mindless hunters, but precision-driven survivors, fine-tuned over millions of years. With senses that detect a heartbeat in the water and speed that defies expectation, they rule the ocean's food chain with quiet efficiency. Yet despite their mastery, they face an enemy they never evolved to fight: humans. More than predators, sharks are protectors of marine life, and their survival is tied to the health of the oceans we all depend on. Here are 6 stories. In 2016, off the coast of Gansbaai, South Africa, a well-known hotspot for great white sharks, a tragic and horrifying incident took place. Emma Williams, a 34-year-old experienced diver, had joined a group exploring the deep waters near Shark Channel. The area, teeming with marine life, had long been a favorite among divers and researchers, despite its reputation for frequent great white shark sightings. That morning, the dive had begun smoothly. The group, consisting of 6 divers and an instructor, had entered the water with the intention of observing the diverse underwater ecosystem. The visibility was decent, though a slight current made movement challenging. Emma, familiar with the waters, maintained a calm and steady pace as she marveled at the swaying kelp forests and schools of silverfish darting through the blue. Everything appeared normal as the group reached their designated depth of about 60 feet. After nearly 40 minutes, the instructor signaled for the group to ascend. Each diver began their slow rise to the surface, ensuring proper decompression. Emma, positioned toward the rear of the group, took her time, pausing momentarily to admire the scenery one last time. It was during this ascent that something went terribly wrong. The others surfaced first, treading water as they waited for the last few members to join them. When minutes passed and Emma failed to appear, concern quickly spread among them. The dive boat crew sprang into action, scanning the water for any sign of her. At first, they assumed she might have had an equipment issue or become momentarily disoriented, but as the seconds stretched into minutes, panic began to set in. The instructor immediately called for an emergency search. A full-scale effort ensued. Nearby boats assisted in scanning the waves while trained divers plunged back into the water, following the group's original route. Despite extensive efforts, Emma was nowhere to be found. Her dive equipment, known to be in excellent condition, had not surfaced. Hours turned into a grueling wait as hope dwindled. The breakthrough came later that evening. A local fishing vessel had reported a large great white shark exhibiting unusual behavior near the dive site. The 18-foot predator had been seen circling persistently, occasionally breaching the surface. Authorities, already on high alert due to Emma's disappearance, responded quickly, tracking the shark's movements. Fearing the worst, marine experts and officials from the Department of Environmental Affairs decided to intervene. The shark, now displaying increasingly erratic swimming patterns, was captured and brought to shore for examination. What they discovered confirmed their darkest fears. A detailed inspection of the shark's stomach contents revealed human remains, including a piece of a wetsuit that matched the description of Emma's diving gear. Forensic analysis later identified the remains as hers, bringing a devastating conclusion to the search. Experts speculated that the attack occurred as Emma was ascending, possibly making her more vulnerable. Whether the shark had mistaken her movements for that of struggling prey or was simply reacting to curiosity remained unknown. News of Emma's fate spread rapidly, leaving the diving community in shock. Friends and fellow divers who had trained with her struggled to come to terms with the loss. Those who had been on the dive that day recounted the eerie final moments before she disappeared, haunted by the thought that she had been only a few feet beneath them when the attack occurred. Emma's family, devastated by the tragedy, pushed for increased awareness regarding safety protocols in shark-inhabited waters. While fatal shark attacks were extremely rare, the incident served as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of the ocean and its apex predators. In the weeks that followed, authorities reviewed safety measures for diving in the area. Many seasoned divers, however, acknowledged that such risks were always present when venturing into the natural domain of great whites. Though nothing could bring Emma back, her story became a sobering lesson in the fragile balance between humans and the wild. As time passed, memorial dives were held in her honor. Despite the horror of her final moments, those who knew her chose to remember her as she was, fearless, passionate, and deeply in love with the ocean. The waters off Gansbaai continued to teem with life. unchanged by the tragedy, serving as a silent but powerful testament to the unpredictable forces of nature that had claimed Emma Williams on that fateful dive. Marine experts examined the details of the incident, attempting to piece together what might have led to the attack. Some speculated that recent fluctuations in water temperature or changes in fish migration patterns could have driven the shark closer to human activity. Others suggested that the shark may have been in a heightened state of aggression due to injury or hunger. Though theories abounded, one fact remained clear: shark behavior was never entirely predictable. The local diving industry felt the impact of Emma's death almost immediately. Tourism, a major source of income for the region, faced a wave of cancellations from those shaken by the tragedy. Shark cage diving operators, who depended on the allure of great white sharks, found themselves under scrutiny. Conservationists, while mourning Emma's loss, emphasized the importance of continued education on shark behavior rather than resorting to fear-driven measures such as culling. Emma's closest friends spoke of the void she left behind. They remembered her as a meticulous diver, always emphasizing safety procedures and never one to take unnecessary risks. Her dedication to marine life had inspired many, and even in the wake of tragedy, they sought to carry on her legacy by advocating for responsible diving practices and marine conservation efforts. Some of her colleagues initiated programs in her name, educating new divers on how to coexist with sharks while minimizing risks. As the months passed, Emma's story slowly faded from headlines, but for those who had known her, the memory remained raw. Her parents, after much deliberation, decided to visit the waters where she had last dived, casting flowers into the sea in a quiet personal tribute. They found a strange comfort in knowing that she had spent her final moments in a place she loved. The ocean, vast and indifferent, continued its eternal rhythm, unknowing of the grief left in its wake. In the summer of 2019, the waters off the coast of Santa Barbara, California, were calm and inviting. The sun shone brilliantly overhead, casting a golden hue over the Pacific, as Rachel Thompson, a 28-year-old fitness instructor, prepared for an afternoon of water skiing with her friends. An experienced athlete, Rachel had spent countless weekends out on the water, confidently gliding over the waves behind her friend's speedboat. That afternoon, everything seemed perfect. The water was glassy, the temperature was warm, and the air carried the scent of salt and sunscreen. Rachel's friends cheered as she took off, skillfully maneuvering over the swells, her body moving effortlessly with the pull of the rope. The speedboat's engine hummed as it towed her further out, away from the crowded shoreline. It was just another routine ride, until something unusual caught the attention of the boat driver, Mark Delaney. A shadow moved beneath the surface, large and fast. At first, Mark dismissed it as a trick of the light, perhaps a school of fish scattering beneath the waves. But as the boat circled back around, the dark shape reappeared, this time closer to Rachel. His stomach tightened as he realized what it was: a great white shark, easily over 12 feet long. Rachel, unaware of the growing danger, continued skiing, exhilarated by the wind rushing past her. But the tension on the boat had shifted. Mark shouted to the others, pointing toward the fin cutting through the surface. The crew scrambled, debating whether to slow down or speed up. Slowing down could bring Rachel dangerously close to the predator, while speeding up risked causing her to lose balance and fall directly into the water. Then, in an instant, the shark made its move. It surged forward, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Before anyone could react, it breached the surface, its powerful jaws clamping down on Rachel's leg in a swift, forceful bite. The impact sent a violent jolt through her body, knocking her off balance and into the sea. A scream cut through the air as the boat crew sprang into action. Mark threw the throttle into reverse as another friend, Ethan Marshall, grabbed a life preserver and hurled it toward Rachel. Blood spread into the water, mixing with the churned waves. Rachel struggled to keep her head above the surface, pain radiating from her leg. The shark, momentarily disoriented by the impact, circled back. Its dark eyes locked onto her. Ethan and another passenger reached for Rachel as the boat closed in. Fighting against the adrenaline coursing through her, she managed to grab hold of the side just as the crew pulled her out of the water. The shark lurked just beneath, its massive tail sweeping ominously as it disappeared back into the depths. Once aboard, Rachel's hands trembled as she clutched her bleeding leg. The wound, though serious, was not as severe as it could have been. The shark's bite had torn through muscle but had narrowly missed any major arteries. Mark pressed a towel against the wound to slow the bleeding as the boat raced toward shore. By the time they reached the marina, emergency responders were already waiting. Paramedics stabilized Rachel before rushing her to the nearest hospital, where she underwent surgery to repair the damage. Miraculously, she had avoided any life-threatening injuries, though the deep bite required dozens of stitches and left her unable to walk unassisted for weeks. The attack sent shockwaves through the local community. While great white sharks were known to inhabit the waters off the California coast, direct encounters with humans were rare. Experts speculated that the shark had mistaken Rachel's fast-moving form for a seal or another prey animal, striking out of instinct rather than malice. In the days following the attack, local authorities increased shark monitoring efforts, warning swimmers and water sport enthusiasts to exercise caution. While some called for culling efforts, marine biologists and conservationists pushed back, emphasizing the importance of understanding and respecting the role of sharks in the ocean's ecosystem. Rachel, despite the trauma, remained determined not to let fear dictate her relationship with the ocean. In interviews, she spoke about the importance of awareness and safety precautions, but refused to blame the shark for what had happened. Her recovery was slow but steady, and though she carried scars from that terrifying encounter, she was grateful to be alive. Months later, she returned to the beach where it had all happened. She watched as surfers paddled out and boats cruised along the horizon. The ocean remained as it always had, vast, unpredictable, and indifferent to human presence. And yet for Rachel, it was still a place of beauty. Though she never water-skied again, she found new ways to enjoy the sea, forever mindful of the hidden world just beneath the surface. As Rachel's recovery progressed, she became an advocate for shark conservation, partnering with marine biologists and organizations to educate the public on the realities of shark behavior. Her first-hand experience gave weight to her message, and despite the trauma, she wanted to replace fear with knowledge. She spoke at public forums and even participated in research initiatives designed to track shark movements along the California coast. Her story caught media attention, drawing both support and skepticism. Some people couldn't fathom how she could defend the creature that had nearly maimed her, but Rachel remained steadfast in her belief that the ocean belonged to the sharks just as much as it did to humans. To her, the incident was not an act of aggression, but rather an unfortunate misunderstanding between two species sharing the same space. Meanwhile, local authorities continued to refine safety measures for water sports enthusiasts. Beachgoers became more aware of the risks, and new drone surveillance programs were implemented to monitor shark activity near popular recreational areas. Though shark attacks remained statistically rare, Rachel's case served as a reminder of nature's unpredictability. By the following year, Rachel had regained much of her strength, though the scar on her leg was a permanent reminder of the encounter. She had come to terms with the fact that the ocean was no longer just a playground. It was a living, breathing world with rules of its own. And despite everything, she still felt drawn to it, standing at the shore, gazing at the waves, knowing that beneath them, life continued as it always had, wild, untamed, and unknowable. In the summer of 2011, the sun glared over the crystal-clear waters of Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, a paradise known for its vibrant coral reefs and warm, inviting sea. Tourists flocked to the Red Sea year-round, lured by its promise of unforgettable snorkeling and diving experiences. Among them was 29-year-old German tourist Anna Müller and her husband Lucas, who had arrived for what they hoped would be a dream vacation. Having spent their first few days enjoying the beaches and sampling local cuisine, they were eager to explore the renowned reefs just off the coast. That afternoon, the couple joined a snorkeling excursion. The tour group was small, consisting of about 8 other snorkelers and a guide who had given a safety briefing before they entered the water. The conditions were ideal: gentle waves, exceptional visibility, and an array of colorful fish swimming lazily among the corals. Anna and Lucas swam side by side, marveling at the underwater scenery. Schools of fish flitted past them, and the occasional sea turtle glided effortlessly through the water. Time seemed to slow as they lost themselves in the beauty of the reef. They had been in the water for nearly 20 minutes, when Lucas noticed a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The fish, which had been abundant only moments before, had scattered. A heavy silence seemed to settle beneath the waves. Lucas turned to check on Anna, only to see a dark, looming shape moving swiftly in their direction. His stomach clenched as he recognized the distinctive stripes along its body. A tiger shark, at least 12 feet long, was closing in. He had read about tiger sharks before, knowing them to be one of the few species known to occasionally attack humans. Panic shot through him as the predator surged forward with terrifying speed. Before he could react, the shark struck. Its powerful jaws clamped onto Anna's leg, yanking her downward with a force that sent a spray of bubbles bursting to the surface. A muffled scream escaped from her snorkel as Lucas thrashed toward her, reaching out in desperation. She struggled, kicking wildly, but the shark's grip was unrelenting. The other snorkelers, startled by the commotion, turned to see Anna being dragged below the surface. Cries of alarm erupted as they scrambled to get back to the boat. The guide, shouting for everyone to remain calm, swam toward the attack, waving his arms in an attempt to deter the predator. But the shark, driven by instinct, was undeterred. Lucas dove, hands grasping at Anna's arms, but the shark jerked her deeper. A cloud of red billowed through the water, obscuring his vision. A second later, she was gone. The sheer horror of the moment froze him in place before he was pulled back to the surface by another snorkeler. The boat crew had already initiated an emergency rescue, hauling the remaining snorkelers out of the water. A call for help was sent to local authorities, and within minutes, search efforts were underway. But Anna's body was recovered shortly after, lifeless, bearing devastating wounds from the attack. The once pristine waters that had promised a magical experience had become the site of an unimaginable nightmare. News of the fatal attack spread quickly, sending shockwaves through the local tourism industry. Authorities imposed temporary beach closures, and marine biologists were called in to assess the situation. Some speculated that the shark may have been attracted to the area by illegal feeding practices, a controversial method sometimes used by tour operators to lure sharks closer for divers. Others pointed to the possibility of disrupted migration patterns affecting shark behavior. Lucas, overcome with grief, struggled to comprehend how a joyful afternoon had turned into tragedy within seconds. He remained in Egypt for days after the attack, working with local officials to ensure Anna's body was returned to their family in Germany. In the aftermath, he avoided interviews, unable to speak about the horrific event. In response to the attack, Egyptian authorities implemented stricter regulations for snorkeling and diving excursions, including better emergency preparedness and stricter enforcement of bans on shark feeding. Marine conservationists, while mourning the loss of a young life, urged people to remember that the ocean remained a wild and unpredictable place, where humans were only visitors. Anna's story became a somber reminder of the power of nature, a chilling contrast to the paradise she and her husband had sought. The sea continued to draw travelers from around the world, its beauty unchanged. But for those who had been there that day, the memory of what lay beneath the waves would forever linger. In the weeks that followed, tourists and locals alike debated whether the attack was a freak accident or part of a larger pattern of aggressive shark behavior in the region. Some longtime residents recalled previous incidents, though none had been as deadly in recent years. Marine experts launched an extensive study of the area, tracking tiger shark activity and analyzing whether environmental changes had led to more sharks straying into human-occupied waters. The results were inconclusive, but the fear among tourists remained palpable. Lucas eventually returned home, but his life was forever altered. He found it impossible to set foot near large bodies of water again. Simple sounds, like the rush of waves or the splash of a fish, would send him spiraling back into the trauma of that day. Therapy helped him process his grief, but no amount of counseling could erase the vivid images that haunted his mind. His dreams, once filled with the excitement of travel, were now plagued by the endless abyss of the sea. The attack also reignited conversations about safety measures in tourist destinations worldwide. Many argued that tour operators needed to do more to educate visitors about potential dangers. Others insisted that the responsibility ultimately lay with travelers to understand the risks before venturing into open water. In the wake of Anna's death, some companies discontinued snorkeling excursions in certain areas, unwilling to take further chances. As the years passed, Anna's family worked to honor her memory. A scholarship fund was established in her name, supporting students pursuing marine biology and ocean conservation. They believed that understanding the ocean, not fearing it, was the best way to prevent further tragedies. Anna had loved the sea, and in a way it had become her final resting place. Though the loss remained unbearable, her family took solace in the idea that she had spent her last moments in a world she had always admired, surrounded by its untamed beauty. On a warm summer afternoon in 2017, the azure waters off the coast of Key Largo, Florida, shimmered under the sunlight. A private yacht drifted leisurely across the calm sea, carrying the Morrow family on what was meant to be a perfect getaway. Isla Morrow, a lively 7-year-old with boundless energy, had spent the morning playing on the deck, running between her parents and older brother as they lounged in the sun. The day had been peaceful, the kind of idyllic moment her parents, David and Eliza Morrow, had envisioned when they planned the trip. As the yacht moved at a slow pace, Isla leaned over the railing, tossing small bits of bread into the water to watch the fish gather. Her laughter echoed across the open sea as a school of fish swirled beneath the boat. But in a split second, her joy turned to terror. The yacht rocked slightly as a wave passed beneath it, and without warning, Isla lost her balance. A sharp scream broke the tranquility as she tumbled overboard, hitting the water with a loud splash. David and Eliza sprang to their feet, their hearts lurching in their chests. Isla surfaced quickly, flailing her arms as the realization of what had happened sank in. Her brother, Luke, scrambled to grab a life preserver while David shouted instructions to the yacht's captain, who immediately started turning the vessel around. But just as relief was beginning to set in that she was unharmed, something else disturbed the water. A dark shadow moved beneath Isla, sleek and fast. It was a bull shark approximately 9 feet long, drawn by the sudden movement and the commotion at the surface. The crew on board saw the dorsal fin slicing through the waves, and a cold wave of panic swept over them. The shark closed the distance in seconds, its muscular body propelling it forward with deadly efficiency. Before Isla could react, the shark struck. Its jaws clamped onto her small leg, pulling her under for a brief, horrifying moment. Her piercing scream was cut short as seawater rushed into her mouth. David, driven by pure instinct, dove in without hesitation. Luke, frozen in shock, watched helplessly from the deck as his father swam furiously toward Isla. The yacht's crew threw ropes and flotation devices into the water, but David reached Isla first. The bull shark, startled by the sudden interference, released its grip and thrashed away. Blood billowed into the water, turning the turquoise sea into a haunting shade of red. With an iron grip, David seized his daughter, kicking frantically toward the yacht as the crew extended their arms to pull them back aboard. Eliza fell to her knees as David lifted Isla onto the deck. The little girl was sobbing, clutching her injured leg, which bore deep lacerations from the shark's teeth. Her skin was pale from shock, her breathing ragged. The crew wrapped a towel tightly around the wound to slow the bleeding while the captain radioed for emergency assistance. The yacht sped toward shore, cutting through the waves with urgency. Eliza held Isla tightly, whispering reassurances as her daughter trembled in her arms. By the time they reached the marina, an ambulance was already waiting. Paramedics worked swiftly, stabilizing Isla before rushing her to the nearest hospital. Doctors determined that despite the severity of the bite, Isla had been incredibly lucky. The shark's teeth had torn into muscle but had narrowly missed major arteries. Surgery was required to repair the damage, and Isla would need months of physical therapy, but she would recover. The relief that she would survive was immense, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would remain. The attack sent ripples of concern through the boating community in Key Largo. Bull sharks were known to frequent Florida's waters, often drawn to shallow areas where fish congregated. Marine biologists explained that the shark had likely mistaken Isla's splashing for that of prey, a tragic case of misidentification rather than aggression. In the aftermath, Isla's parents became vocal advocates for increased safety measures on yachts and boats carrying young children. They pushed for mandatory safety railings and stricter life jacket regulations for minors. Though nothing could erase the trauma of that day, they hoped their efforts would prevent similar incidents in the future. Months later, Isla took her first steps without crutches, a milestone that brought her family to tears. She remained hesitant around water, wary of the unseen creatures lurking beneath the surface. But with time, she began to heal. Her family, too, carried the weight of that terrifying moment, forever reminded of how a single second could change everything. The ocean, vast and beautiful, had given them a memory they would never forget, a reminder of both its splendor and its unforgiving nature. Despite the trauma, Isla's story captured the attention of marine conservation groups, who used it as an opportunity to educate the public on shark behavior. They stressed that while attacks like these were terrifying, they were rare, and bull sharks were not mindless killers. Scientists studying the incident believed that the shark had been investigating Isla out of curiosity, not malice. This perspective, however, did little to ease the lingering fear that had settled over Isla's family. David, once an avid deep-sea fisherman, found himself avoiding open waters altogether. The guilt of having let his daughter fall overboard consumed him, despite reassurances that it had been an accident. He replayed the moment in his mind endlessly. What if he had caught her before she fell? What if he had reacted faster? Though Isla was healing physically, the emotional scars ran deep within the entire family. As the months passed, Isla's resilience became evident. She worked tirelessly with physical therapists, regaining strength in her injured leg. Her therapists encouraged her to confront her fear of water, gradually reintroducing her to swimming pools and shallow beaches. It was a long, difficult process, but eventually she found the courage to wade into the ocean again, under the watchful eyes of her family. On the first anniversary of the attack, the Maros returned to Key Largo, not to relive the trauma, but to reclaim what had been taken from them. With her father by her side, Isla stood at the shoreline, allowing the waves to wash over her feet. The water, once a source of unimaginable terror, was beginning to feel familiar again. It would never be the same, but she refused to let fear dictate her life. By the time Isla turned 10, she had become an advocate for ocean safety, speaking at events designed to educate families about precautions on the water. She told her story not as a tale of horror, but as a lesson in respect for the ocean and its creatures. Though she would always carry the scars of that fateful day, she had chosen not to be defined by fear, but by resilience. Off the coast of South Australia in 2021, the ocean stretched endlessly, an expanse of deep blue interrupted only by the occasional ripple of marine life beneath the surface. It was a prime location for underwater photography, renowned for its dramatic seascapes and the thriving populations of great white sharks that patrolled its depths. Olivia Harris, a 32-year-old professional photographer, had spent years perfecting her craft, capturing marine life in some of the most stunning and remote locations in the world. That summer, she had been hired by a nature magazine to document the raw beauty of the southern Australian waters. With a team of divers and assistants, she set out early one morning to a well-known dive site near the Jupiter Islands, an area famous for its great white shark activity. The risks were clear, but Olivia, familiar with the ocean's unpredictable nature, felt prepared. Descending into the depths, Olivia and her team moved slowly, adjusting their cameras and lights as they captured the ethereal scene around them. Schools of fish shimmered in the filtered sunlight, weaving through the water in synchronized waves. A large stingray drifted lazily along the seabed, and in the distance a pod of dolphins briefly appeared before vanishing into the blue abyss. Everything seemed serene, the silence of the underwater world broken only by the rhythmic sound of their breathing through regulators. Olivia focused her camera on a dense cluster of fish, angling her shot for the perfect composition. That was when she noticed the sudden shift. The fish scattered almost instantly, vanishing into the rocky crevices. The visibility, which had been relatively clear, now felt eerily empty. A shadow loomed in the distance, massive and slow-moving. Olivia's pulse quickened. She knew exactly what was coming. A great white shark, at least 18 feet long, glided toward them with deliberate ease. It was a giant, its body sleek and powerful, and its black eyes scanning the strange intruders in its domain. Olivia and her team remained still, watching as the shark circled them at a distance. They had seen sharks before on previous dives, but something about this one felt different. There was an edge to its movements, a lingering presence that sent a chill through the group. The team maintained their training, staying composed and avoiding sudden movements. But as Olivia adjusted her camera, a bright reflection from the lens caught the shark's attention. It turned sharply, zeroing in on her, its movements now more focused. A moment later, it surged forward. The impact was brutal. The shark clamped down on Olivia's arm, its powerful jaws slicing through her wetsuit as if it were paper. A searing pain shot through her as the teeth tore into her flesh. The force sent her tumbling backward, her camera knocked from her grip and sinking toward the ocean floor. A cloud of blood erupted into the water, triggering chaos among the team. Olivia fought against the immense pressure, trying to yank her arm free as the shark shook her violently. One of the divers reacted instantly, slamming his camera against the shark's snout in an attempt to startle it. The great white hesitated, loosening its grip just enough for Olivia to wrench herself free. She kicked backward, pain coursing through her body as she clutched her injured arm. Her team didn't waste a second. 2 divers grabbed her, pulling her toward the surface with desperate speed. The ascent felt agonizingly slow as adrenaline pumped through Olivia's veins. She struggled to stay conscious, her vision blurring from the blood loss. When they finally breached the surface, the crew on the boat hauled her aboard, working quickly to wrap her mangled arm while signaling for an emergency evacuation. The boat sped toward shore, where paramedics were already waiting. Olivia was rushed to a hospital in Adelaide, where she underwent multiple surgeries to repair the extensive damage. Though she had lost a significant amount of blood and would require months of rehabilitation, she had survived. Her doctors marveled at her resilience, knowing how close she had come to losing her arm, or worse. News of the attack spread rapidly, reigniting debates about the risks of diving in shark-heavy waters. Some called for stricter regulations, while others emphasized that Olivia had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Marine biologists studying the incident suggested that the shark had likely mistaken the glint of her camera for the sheen of fish scales, triggering an investigative bite rather than an intentional attack. Despite the trauma, Olivia refused to let fear dictate her future. Once recovered, she spoke openly about the experience, emphasizing the importance of respecting the ocean and understanding the behavior of its apex predators. She continued her work, though with newfound caution, advocating for responsible interactions with marine life. Her scars told a story of survival, a reminder of both the power and fragility of human existence in the vast, unpredictable world beneath the waves. In the summer of 2014, the waters off the eastern province of South Africa were alive with marine activity. The coastline, known for its rich biodiversity, was a prime location for research, drawing scientists from across the world to study its vibrant marine ecosystems. Among them was 34-year-old marine biologist Claire Dupont, a French researcher who had dedicated her life to understanding shark behavior. Having spent years documenting the movements and feeding patterns of various shark species, she was no stranger to the risks of working in open water. But on that fateful afternoon, even her expertise couldn't save her from what was about to unfold. Claire had been conducting a survey on coral reef health with a small research team. The waters were relatively shallow, around 30 feet deep, and the visibility was decent, though a slight current made movement slow. With her clipboard in hand and a waterproof camera strapped to her wrist, Claire meticulously noted the conditions of the reef, occasionally pausing to observe the small reef sharks darting through the coral. It was supposed to be a routine dive, another data collection trip to add to her growing body of work. Then the atmosphere shifted. The usual rhythm of the ocean felt disturbed. Schools of fish that had been lazily gliding between coral formations suddenly scattered in erratic bursts. Claire, attuned to the behaviors of marine life, immediately sensed something was wrong. Her dive partner, Matthew Lane, signaled to her, asking if she had noticed the change. She nodded, scanning the murky blue beyond their position. From the corner of her eye, she saw it, a large, shadowy figure moving just beyond the edge of visibility. A bull shark, roughly 10 feet in length, was approaching fast. Unlike great whites, which often investigated before striking, bull sharks were known for their aggressive unpredictability. In an instant, the predator was upon them. The attack happened so fast that neither Claire nor Matthew had time to react. The shark struck with immense force, its powerful jaws clamping down on Claire's leg just above the knee. A cloud of blood exploded into the water as Claire's body jerked violently from the impact. A muffled cry escaped through her regulator as the pain shot through her like fire. The shark, thrashing its head side to side, attempted to pull her deeper. Matthew, frozen for a split second, sprang into action. Years of emergency training took over as he lunged toward Claire, slamming his dive slate against the shark's snout in a desperate attempt to deter it. The predator hesitated, loosening its grip just enough for Claire to wrench herself free, though not without severe damage. Her leg was mangled, torn open by the shark's razor-sharp teeth. Matthew grabbed Claire, wrapping an arm around her as he signaled frantically to the surface team. Kicking hard against the water's resistance, he dragged her toward the ascent line, struggling against both the current and the panic threatening to consume them. The bull shark circled once, seemingly contemplating another attack, but then veered away, disappearing into the deep. The excruciating ascent felt endless. Claire's vision blurred, her breathing ragged through the regulator. Blood streamed from her wound, dissolving into the water in haunting red tendrils. But before they could reach the surface, the bull shark returned, this time with finality. A second brutal attack sent Claire spiraling. The force of the strike separated her from Matthew's grip. The water churned in a frenzy of motion and crimson. Matthew reached out, but it was too late. The shark dragged Claire downward, its powerful jaws sealing her fate. Her body disappeared into the abyss, the ocean swallowing her whole. By the time the surface team pulled Matthew aboard, his face was ashen, his hands trembling. The crew scanned the water, hoping for an impossible miracle. But deep down they knew Claire Dupont was gone. Her loss sent ripples through the marine research community. A scientist who had devoted her life to understanding the ocean had become a part of its eternal depths. Tributes poured in from colleagues, conservationists, and those who had been inspired by her work. Her research, her passion, and her unwavering dedication to marine life would not be forgotten. Years later, on the very shores where she once waded into the sea, a plaque was placed in her honor. It bore her name, her legacy, and a simple yet powerful inscription. She loved the ocean, and the ocean took her home.